Yeah, we need to really just spend time with our kids. There's studies that state that if you spend 20 minutes with undivided attention with your kids, that's what they need. Now, obviously, we want to give them a lot more than that, but it is not like my to-do list and going through the to-do list and all the things that we've got to do in your head. Like, you are wholeheartedly with your child in that moment, doing whatever it is that they want to do, whether that's gaming, whether that's, whatever it is. Like, just go into their world for at least 20 minutes a day and see if their behavior changes. Yeah, so I've been on a spiritual journey for the last 20 years. When I was younger, I used to drink a lot. I've stopped drinking. I haven't drank for almost 10 years now. And I went to a meditation teacher and she just got me to draw. And she got me to draw because I couldn't express how I was feeling at the time. I didn't even know what emotions were back then. I was too busy drinking. And so it's beautiful that I went to a meditation teacher and she kind of started the trajectory of this path subconsciously without me even realizing, because that's what I started to do with kids, 20 years later. And I guess I've just really felt into emotions. Emotions don't scare me. When I separated, it's amazing how many people are just nowhere to be seen because they can't handle the big feelings. Whereas I want to be the person for other people that I needed during that time, because I didn't have a lot of people that were able to hold that space. I mean, I was very broken, absolutely. But, people are scared of emotions. Every emotion has its place.
Cool. Welcome to Brainwaves by Opus, where we sit down with industry leaders to unpack their journeys, explore key challenges, and talk about how they're shaping the future of behavioral health and healthcare technology. I'm your host, Sean Rickenbacker, and today we're diving into the world of children's mental health, where therapy meets storytelling, and where tech is finally starting to speak in a kid's language. Our guest is Jacintha Field, a family and child counselor, play therapist, and the founder of Happy Souls Kids, a digital platform teaching kids emotional regulation and mindfulness through gamified videos, athlete role models, and tools that actually meet children where they are. What started as a private practice to help her son through a tough chapter of solo parenting, separation, and COVID quickly evolved into a global mission to give families access to emotional support before things spiral. Jacintha is also a fierce advocate for flipping the narrative from what's wrong with this child to what's happening underneath. Again, Jacintha, we're so glad to have you on the show. We'd love if you could start with sharing your own story in your own words.
Yeah, beautiful. And Sean, thanks so much for having me. Now, the kids in practice call me Jay because Jacintha is a bit of a tongue twister. It's like just Samantha and Jacintha put together. So people are just like, hey. So if you need to call me Jay, that's just a lot less of a tongue twister. Okay, so in 2019, 2020, we separated. My son started school and it was COVID the same time, and he was not okay. He was throwing bins around the house. He was running up the street. His emotions were so well beyond anything I could support at the time. And so I studied as much as I could to be able to support my own child. I'd done my own spiritual work. I'd done meditation and yoga for years. But for him, it didn't even touch the sides. So it wasn't a language that he understood. Even though we did some breath work, he needed more. So I got him to start drawing circles. And so on a piece of paper, we'd draw a circle, 3 circles. And I'd say, hey, could you put the face of how you're feeling in there? Could you put the face? And so he'd put down sad, disappointed, angry. And then we'd talk about that and we'd break it down. And so that was the birth of me really working with children with my own son. I've always been quite a conscious mum. But then during COVID, I saw that kids couldn't gain access to psychologists. There's a 6 to 12 month wait, which unfortunately still exists today. So kids can't get help, parents can't get help. There's kids all over the world that are just I'm just struggling and I don't know what to do. So that's when I studied to become a family and child counselor, art therapist. I've studied play therapy and I'm a kids yoga teacher. So I worked out the modalities of what I needed to be able to support people in the community. And we moved to Torquay, which is the surfing capital of Australia, where Kelly Slater wins all the time, the WSL. And I had a private practice there, a home practice. So not only could my son be supported in his big feelings and emotions through that separation process, but I was also working with children and families and working the pain points that they were facing. And then in practice one day, I said to one of the kids, "Hey, do you want to do some meditation?" He just rolls his eyes at me like, "Whatever, lady." I said, "You know, LeBron James meditates." And instantaneously, he was in. He wanted to meditate straight away. And so that was the birth of Happy Souls Kids now being something beyond a practice, where it's a startup now. We're building a startup and we're building something that kids really enjoy and using gamification to be able to use a language that they really like. So think Duolingo versus Car Map versus Masterclass. So that's what we're building. So my heart is with kids, Sean. Like I just love and adore them. And I see every part of a child. I see every part of them and I just love and adore them. And, you know, kids are just having a hard time, just like us parents are.
I love that. I think obviously the child focus is, as you mentioned, with it taking so much time for children to be able to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, having an organization that focuses on children is fantastic. I guess how long have you been in the space then? You mentioned it was prior to COVID, right? That you started studying?
Yeah, so I've been on a spiritual journey for the last 20 years. You know, when I was younger, I used to drink a lot. I've stopped drinking. I haven't drank for almost 10 years now. And I went to a meditation teacher and she just got me to draw. And she got me to draw and draw because I couldn't express how I was feeling at the time. I didn't even know what emotions were back then. I was too busy drinking. And so it's beautiful that I went to a meditation teacher and she kind of started the trajectory of this path subconsciously without me even realizing, because that's what I started to do with kids, you know, 20 years later. And I guess I've just really like felt into emotions. Like emotions don't scare me when I separated. It's amazing how many people just like are just nowhere to be seen because they can't handle the big feelings. Whereas I want to be the person for other people that I needed during that time because I didn't have a lot of people that were able to hold that space. I mean, I was very broken, absolutely, but you know, people are scared of emotions. Every emotion has its place.
Yeah, we definitely are scared of emotions. I think as well with, like you mentioned, you've been on this journey for such a long time. I think everybody's got to start the journey at some point, right? And if you don't start as a kid, suddenly you're an adult who still struggles with those big emotions and struggles to handle them. We all start our journeys somewhere. We got to keep it
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
You mentioned, of course, that really started with your son and the solo parenting journey that you had there. I also had a single mother, and so like obviously my experience was probably fairly common among people. How do you feel that your relationship with your son has developed over the years because of your journey with Happy Kids?
You know, single mums are really strong. Single parents are really strong. Single carers are really strong. And that's how I'll start. And so your mum was extremely strong because it's not easy to do it all on your own, but at the same point, it is easier. So it's been a really tough road. I haven't had much help for the last 5 years, especially. Like I've done 98% of the work, and that has been okay for me, but really tough for my son. So he's had to hold some really big feelings and emotions. And I remember watching The Pursuit of Happiness with him one day, and it's my favorite movie. I love that movie. It's so beautiful. And there's a moment in there where the boy's father, the mother leaves, and Will Smith says, Chris Gardner says, "It's not you. You're not the problem here. Your mum's got to work on herself." And so these are conversations that I have with my son all the time. Like, can we just love him from far? You know, he's on his own path, he's got stuff going on, and that's okay. And I think that if we really feel into children and help them understand that they are so worthy, because they don't dislike you, they dislike themselves, and they have a sense of unworthiness there. And we really need to feel into that with kids and help them realize that they are so special. They're not doing anything wrong. Sometimes people are just on a different journey. But for, you know, a 8, 10-year-old, it's very hard to understand. You know, even parents can't even understand that. Adults can't even understand this stuff. So my son's done a really brilliant job. He's so intelligent. He has an engineering brain. And I see him for who he is in this world. And I think that that really helps with his separation process. Like he loves 3D printing. So for Christmas, we got him a 3D printer. And I think that we need to see our children for who they are. And I think that that really helps with the connection piece because what's lacking in a lot of relationships, friendships, family dynamics is the connection. So that needs to come first above everything else. And I think that's why we've worked so great as a mum and son team, is that I see him for who he is. I accept him wholeheartedly, every part of him unconditionally. He can be his whole self around me. And the second piece is that we have a lot of connection. It's an open space to be able to say, hey, if you don't like something that's happening, mummy's not perfect. She makes so many mistakes as well. Please tell me, or have a conversation with me. And he will say, I didn't like it when you did that, mummy. That didn't make me feel good. And I think that's why we've worked so well. Whereas I work with a lot of separated couples and they're so busy working or providing for the house or, sitting in the space of pain, that they lose a lot of that connection with their kids. And so that's what kids need, is they need you.
Yeah, that connection, that communication. I mean,
Yeah.
we forget that, it's a relationship you have with your kids, and with relationships come communication and compromise,
Yeah.
regardless of the nature of it. I love that. I imagine, since you're working a lot with kids, I personally had a counselor that I met with when I was young, when my parents were splitting. I imagine that it's probably a lot of internalized guilt that's misplaced in
Yeah.
kids, where they think,
Mhm.
oh, it must be my fault that mom and dad split, and these sort of things. What is your strategy for helping kids overcome that sort of internalized guilt?
Is just listening, like wholeheartedly listening to what they have to say. So don't say, oh, that's not true. This is that. Don't try and fix their problems for them. Like sit in that pain point of actually really listening to what's going on for them and allow them that space to be open. Like we have this thing and I say, hey, do you need your 5 minutes? And his 5 minutes is where he can scream, yell, get everything out of his body that he needs. He loves using swear words during that time, whatever he needs to get it
Yeah.
out. This is what we do, is we utilize that time, and I give him a sense of control as well, to especially during the transitions. Like it's so tough going, it's like going from Pluto to Mars, like different stages in life. And it's really hard that a child would lose a sense of control. They get told what to do in every area. It's different rules at one person's house, different rules at another, different food. Like he has intolerances that aren't really respected over the other side. So he comes back to me just a mess. And this is very common. It's not just in my circumstance, it's in many. And so it takes a few days to unravel children. But the way to do that is to give them a sense of control. We will always get out into nature. We will like play games. Like he will control me like I'm a robot sometimes. Or sometimes he needs to get into the sand and build sand castles and get his like hands dirty. Or other times it'll game of chasey or hide and seek. And so it's really having that space, that safe space for him to just get whatever he needs to out of his body. Because there's a lot, there's so many layers to it when it comes to parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to bring in my portion about it, but I've got an 18-month-old daughter, and she just had her first big meltdown yesterday, and so it was a lot of that, giving her control. And we went outside and took a breather and really like gave her that space to feel those big feelings. And she's not at the point where she can communicate those verbally, but it's
Yeah.
really, like you said, about listening to her and listening to her needs.
Yeah. And how did that feel for you when she was going through that moment, Sean? Like, how was it for you? Like, how did you in your body feel?
It's scary. You're hearing this, your beautiful child kind of feeling these big feelings, and it's like, I can't go in there and fix it. I can comfort from the outside. It's scary. It's kind of maybe gives you a little bit of doubt, like, okay, I think I signed up for something that maybe I didn't fully understand.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of like, for me, it was a lot of introspection. Like, okay, if I were in her situation, feeling the types of feelings that she has with the life experience she's had so far, kind of what would I need?
Yeah.
What would I want at that
And
point?
if you could go back into your own childhood, what would you say? What did you need in those moments?
But for me, it was like comfort, like knowing that even if I am acting up and I'm feeling these big feelings, that I'm still loved as a kid. This is turning into a therapy session for me.
But this is the thing, Sean. Like, what did you get when you were younger? What was it? What did you get when you were younger? Did you get the comfort?
Not much, not much.
No. And this is where it is like, and so when it happens with our own children or even children around us, we're like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. Like I was told to like eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right, get over it. I just like, what do I do? And so being a new parent, Sean, I really respect and honor you because you're going through that process of saying, this is not what I got, but what I needed was this. And so that's what you're giving your child. So, how beautiful for you to be able to just listen. But do know that there's often triggers that come up for us during this stage where we're just like, what do we do? Like, I don't understand. Like the
Yeah.
child's like crying and I'm like, what does that mean? So just know that how beautiful that you can recognize that. It comes from our own childhood.
Yep. I mean, I think with our own childhoods, we either learn by positive example or lack of positive example. You know,
Yes.
we become the parents that we needed, ideally,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, you know, our parents were doing the best that they could and they didn't have the tools, and their parents didn't even have these conversations back then. So they weren't aware that there was a different form of parenting. And so it's almost having respect and honor and compassion for your parents to say, not even knowing that this existed. Imagine not even having these other modalities or other options for your children. But I will say, Sean, my dad, who was eat concrete, harden up, you'll be right. He's just very much so get over it. And that was not what I needed as a child. He is the most beautiful grandfather to my son. And watching him with my son is so healing for me because he is the father figure essentially. Because he's learned, like he will listen to my discussions, or I'll say when my son will say, he'll say, oh, how was school? And he'll say, good. And I'll say, Dad, just say to him, hey, can you elaborate? Can you tell me more about that? Can you go into conversations? And he listens, you know, he listens to these conversations. Oh, okay, yep, that's what I need to do. And it's so beautiful to watch them have this common interest of a 3D printer and they do projects together. And how nice that our parents can now have a different way of parenting with our kids.
Yeah, I love that. I'm on social media a lot, so I hear a lot of people when they see their own parents treat their children differently. Some people have this resentment towards their parents, like, oh man, now they're the parent I wish I had. But we really got to let people grow and let people develop. You know, they're on their
Yeah.
journey, we're on ours, right?
You only know what you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is having that compassion for our parents, but it's also leading by example. Like I had to remove myself from my family for a little while because they weren't accepting my form of parenting until they could see, wow, he's a really good kid. You know, he's really special. And they're like, wow, what she's doing is working. But it did take a period of time for me to just say, you know what? I don't want to parent like that. That's not how I want to parent. Thank you for your opinions, your advice. But when we moved away, it was so healing for us to be able to say, how do we want to connect together? How do we want to do this? And then come back into the family dynamic when we were ready for that. And it's okay to do things like that. Sometimes you need some space to be able to work out because parents are so overpowering. I read an article once that said every Tom, Dick, and Harry will give you advice as soon as you become a parent. And the only person you should listen to is yourself. Because everyone has a way to do it. Uncle Jan from here, or Bob Peter from there, or all your friends have different ways. I remember I had a bestie years ago who was just so disciplinary parenting. You need to let them cry it out, cry it out, cry it out. And it just didn't sit right with my soul. And I did it once and I was like, oh, that's just yucky. That doesn't work for us. And I never did it again because my form of parenting is based in connection and love.
I mean, nobody knows your situation like you do, and nobody knows your kid like
Exactly.
you do. So,
Yeah, exactly.
you mentioned earlier that you were working with a kid and you said, hey, LeBron James meditates. And I know that you guys pull from like role models. How does that work at Happy Souls Kids?
Yeah, so it's finding like we're going through our beta testing at the moment. So we've got some really great supporters and we've got some really great people that have come on board. And so we're just testing what kids like and what kids don't like. So it's is it the celebrities? Is it the athletes for them? The reasoning behind it is that the parents are actually more probably obsessed with the athletes than the kids are. So that therefore gets the parents to start listening to the stories of what they talk about because through storytelling and through unique raw storytelling you can learn so much, but you've got to get people in the door enough for them to be able to say, hey, I'm listening. And so, yeah, we're going through that testing at the moment. So, I mean, LeBron James is definitely on our list. You know, in Australia, you got to aim high here, Sean. You know,
Yep.
you got to reach for the sky, and it's finding the unique voices. Now, sometimes for children, that's YouTubers. You know, it's not necessarily people of influence in that way. Like it's making sure that we capture their attention through people that are interesting for them, which is not necessarily that are interesting for us. Excuse me one second. I
No
just have to
worries.
blow my nose. Excuse me one second. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm still very sick.
Hey, you're totally good. I mean, we're glad to have you here. So totally fine. Totally
Okay.
fine.
Okay. We can continue now.
All right. I know you mentioned like it kind of gets the parents involved when you mention athletes or these like role models, these figures. We speak a lot with people who are in the psychiatry space, but also in the substance use disorder treatment space.
Mm,
And one thing that is common is in order for somebody to reach like long term wellness, long term recovery, it's about getting the support group involved, getting their family, their friends, essentially to have a stake in their wellness, in their long term recovery. How has that been at Happy Souls Kids? Obviously, working with the child and their parents.
my business is called Happy Souls Kids, but most of my like work is with the parents, not the children. So it's great to have kids learn the tools, learn the lessons, come in, and we do a lot of play therapy. There's a lot of play, but the conversations happen and are surrounded outside of that, where a parent has 40 years of habits and patterns to break, that they find really challenging. You know, you often go into a parenting dynamic of I am the parent and you are the child. And that is really hard to break, where it's often they're not listening to me. Why are they not listening to me? And that trigger of, or split, as one of my friends calls it, is I feel disrespected. And so there, all of this stuff comes up. And so it's very gently and softly helping parents understand a different language. We call it a different language when we work with parents and kids at Happy Souls Kids, where, you know, I'm here to teach you a different language within the family dynamic so you can all connect together and you can see each other and understand each other and value each other. And everybody's heard in the family, not just the parent telling the child what to do, the child gets to have a voice too. I'm really big on yes days, Sean, really, really big on yes days, where a child gets to choose what they want to do from start to finish. They get to kind of come in and be like, oh, what is it that I want to do for my whole day? Now, maybe they could have a limit of money. Maybe it could just be just riding our bike somewhere. But the sense of control that a child can have makes them feel valued and empowered in the world. Another thing to do, I get parents to do, is wrestling before bed and getting the child to win so they go to sleep feeling empowered, like Superman or Superwoman or Wonder Woman. And there's those little things that I teach parents where parents will often say, well, I don't want them to win. They're not going to learn. That is true. But every single child is told what to do in every element of their life. If you get a goal in basketball, you feel empowered. Like, let the child have that feeling. Let them have that moment where they're like, oh, wow, I won that game of Uno, or I won that wrestling match. And we want to empower our kids because they're told what to do in every other area of their life through everyone. So it's these little tools that help parents understand what kids' needs are. Because when I ask them about a yes day, or I ask a child, what do you want to do? Like, if you could plan the day from start to finish, what would it look like? 99% of the time, of conversations that I've had, those kids want to be with their parents.
That it's great insight to see like the children, like I mentioned before, when I was a child, like I wanted to feel loved, but also like how much children love their parents and want to spend that time. You know, we're so busy with work and if we're going to school and all those sort of things that detract from the family, but kind of bringing it back is super important.
Yeah, we need to like really just spend time with our kids. There's studies that state that if you spend 20 minutes with undivided attention with your kids, that's what they need. Now, obviously, we want to give them a lot more than that, but it is not like the on my to do list and going through the to do list and all the things that you've got to do in your head. Like you are wholeheartedly with your child in that moment, doing whatever it is that they want to do, whether that's gaming, whether that's, whatever it is. Like just go into their world for at least 20 minutes a day and see if their behavior changes.
I want to bring it back. You said that a lot of people fall into this kind of pitfall of I am the parent, you are the child. And you said it's very difficult to overcome that mindset. I know a lot of people think that the only alternative to I'm the parent, you are the child, and the dynamic is like, oh, we're kind of just friends that hang out or whatever. How do you help parents to overcome that roadblock? Obviously, we know what they should do, but how do you overcome that mentally?
It's tough. It's really tough. That mental hierarchy that often exists. We don't necessarily just want to be the friend because at the end of the day, we're still the parent and we still need to have boundaries. Especially in this work, people think that it's like getting your kids to do whatever they want, and it's not. Kids need boundaries. And when you create a boundary that often pushes up against what they're needing to release in their body, I'll give you an example. When my son was very young, we were going through the separation process. I was in a supermarket and he desperately wanted this particular toy. And I said no. And he's like screaming, yelling on the ground, having a big tantrum. And I just said, listen, I am happy to sit here with you for as long as you like, but I'm not getting that toy for you. And it was 45 minutes in a supermarket. Now, most parents would never be able to deal with that. I'm very patient with my son at the time because I know that it had nothing to do with that particular toy, and I knew exactly what was going on in his life. So that allowed him to release so much out of his body that he needed to release because I held that boundary. Now, I'm not saying for everybody around the world to let their kids cry in supermarkets and have tantrums. That's not what I'm saying. But often, if we don't let our kids release those emotions when they need to, it happens like that in times that are very unfortunate and very uncomfortable for us. Whereas if we learn to have this practice all the time with kids, they release what they need to out of their body because you are their friend. My kid, we are like best friends and it's beautiful, but I'm still his parent. I still need to create boundaries. I still need to make sure that he's safe. I still need to ensure that he's okay and he's got the right people and the right friendships around him. And so it's ensuring that we still treat kids with respect and love and compassion and empathy, but by still being the parent. And I think that's the difference between the hierarchy of you will do what I say and meeting them with love, but still being the parent.
It's the like you mentioned before, listening and communicating with your kid, but also like giving them the space to feel those big feelings. Absolutely love that.
Yeah.
I read a little bit about, or obviously you mentioned this before, and I read about it with Happy Souls Kids. But you talked about like gamifying the process. Can you tell me more about how that works and the methodology there?
Yeah, of course. So when I look at if a child goes to a psychologist, some psychologists are great and they work with children in a different way. But I've found in my practice that play therapy is what kids like and they like to play. I was called the slime lady in practice because we would make a lot of slime and it was very hands on, or sometimes we'd play lots of games or even karaoke and all of these really fun things. And so when building this app, we built it, we have a website, it was great, but why would a child go to a website? Like, for what purpose would they go to a website and watch a video? Like, that's not their language. So my child loves gamification. It was really hard for me to accept that. I thought I was going to be an earth mom and I thought we would be like living by the land and going surfing and everything would be wonderful. That is not who my child is. My child is extremely intelligent in that he was putting batteries in toys when he was 2 years old. He's just the way his brain works. And so he's essentially my co-founder where I sit down and say, what would you use? Why would you use this? Like, what games do you play that you really like that we could implement this into Happy Souls Kids where it doesn't feel like education, it feels like fun. And so that's what we're doing. Like, I work with him and other kids to be able to work out what they like and what would entice them to utilize the platform what they like about different games they play, and what is a language that they really do understand and connect to, and it's gamification. It's when they're winning, they want to win. Like as parents, we're like, oh gosh, why are you why are you gaming? Stop gaming. Like they feel so empowered when they're playing these games. They feel like that they're winning.
Yeah.
That's when they feel empowered. That's when they feel like they're on top of the world. And so that's why especially boys love gaming, is because it's that feeling inside that they get that they often don't get within the house dynamic. And so we have worked out a way to be able to teach kids in a language that they understand.
Love that. And obviously, this has been a very informative podcast session for me. I feel like I'm starting to break down certain things and understand myself a little bit better. So I love that. Giving the kids space to feel, but giving them like those little triumphs, like you mentioned, that they might not feel in the rest of the family dynamic. I think that's
And
awesome.
don't do too much for your kids. You know, when my son loves Lego, he's always loved Lego, and he would say to me, Mummy, can you do it? I'd always say to him from a very, very young age, I reckon you've got this. And he will say, no, it's too hard. And I'll say, I'm right here with you. I'm right next to you. I'm right here, but I want you to give it a go. And so if we do too much for our children, we're robbing them of their lessons and things that they can learn. We don't want to do that. There was another time where he was on the swing. You know, he's like, so swing me. And I did to a point, and I said, I reckon you've got this. He's like, got so frustrated. He was so frustrated. I can't do it. I said, I reckon you got this. But the beautifulness that came out of that and the empowerment that he felt the first time he did it was beautiful. So we're not letting our kids, we're guiding them on what to do. And that is our job as parents, is to guide our kids to be independent. So when they go out in the world, we feel safe with how they are as human beings.
Yeah. I imagine that you telling him like, "Hey, you got this," is helping to instill him with that trust and that confidence to become a very good like human being, right?
Yeah. He is a good human being. I mean, he has his moments. We all do. Like, my kid triggers me more than anybody else in the entire world, and that's his job.
Yeah.
You know, that's what he's put on earth to do, is like work through all the habits and beliefs and the patterns and all of the stuff that I need to work through. Is that when we realize that, and when we can accept that our kids are here to trigger us because we've got stuff to work on, you look at things from a very different dynamic.
Definitely.
And
They
that's where the
definitely should.
hierarchy comes into it. Like, am I your parent or are you my teacher? I'm not sure.
As much as we are shaping their worldview, they're shaping.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nobody will trigger you more than your kid. That's their job.
Looking forward to it. I'll say that. So it'll be good. It'll be good. Awesome, Jay. Well, it's been great having you on here. I know we are a little bit over the time that we'd allotted. I want to respect your time. I know you've got plenty of stuff to do, but I always ask this question: do you have any book recommendations?
Oh, gosh, so many. I love autobiographies. I'm reading one at the moment, Jordan Ablett, who's a really big footy player here. That's just because it's right in front of me now. I can see it. My biggest book. I have so many. I mean, The Power of Now, you go back to The Power of Now, and it's a really hard book to understand until you've done the work. You really need to really do the work in what it means. I remember reading it 20 years ago and being like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But I read it recently and I was like, yep, okay, I get those points. Actually, a friend of mine just launched a book called Human Medicine by Charlie Goldsmith, and that is divine. And what I love about his book is that he talks about emotions as just like you feel like you need to go to the toilet. When an emotion comes up, it's coming up because it wants to be released. So we often use food. I do. Sugar's big with me. Different modalities, grabbing our phone, going to see friends, grabbing a drink, whatever it might be for you. When it's coming up, it needs to be released. And I think that that's really great analogy that he talks about, because it helps us understand that emotions have a place in our body. His book is really great at explaining it, that things are happening for us, not to us, which is when you're in the moment, it's so hard. My son just had a massive accident. And I was like, he smashed his teeth on the ground. And I was like, how could this be happening for me, not to me? But there are gifts in everything that happens with us, where if we can see things from a different perspective and accept what's happening. He has this great line in it, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember it, but it says, please help and give me the strength to be able to deal with this situation in a way that I can really see the gifts that it's giving me. And especially when you go through separation, Sean, it is like a brutal mess. And it is like, I felt like I was smashed into a trailer by a semi trailer going 100 miles an hour. But when you get through those elements, you see the joy. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much stronger than I was before. So, yeah, Human Medicine by Charlie Goldsmith is definitely one that I've loved over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it just begins with us. Everything is us. We've got work to do. Whatever's coming up, if there's patterns in our life, go in. Don't look to the person that's doing something. Like, go inside and go, how can I heal what's happening within me?
Love that. Love that. Again, this has been terribly insightful for me and helped me to break down a lot of stuff internally. I got a lot of thinking to do now. But thanks so
I'm
much
always
for your
here,
time.
Sean. Always here.
Thanks so much for your time. And of course, it's been great to hear about you and your journey. And happy
Yeah,
Souls
wonderful.
Kids.
Thanks for having me.